To my knowledge, I have done 2 to 3 different videos on this channel scoffing at the ideas of re-releases and 2.0s. I was on the record stating that reissues and 2.0s were a danger to this hobby, bad for collecting, and in the end would be the final nail in the coffin to the high-end collecting world. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I was wrong, and I'm here to proclaim today that I have flipped my position. Today, I'm going to share with you why we need more 2.0s and how are you yourself going to thrive and survive in this hobby. Do you want to know all the juicy details? Well, all that and more is coming up next. Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the channel for episode 2 of this new season. I do want to send out a heartfelt bit of gratitude to everyone that watched our latest episode about the Artisan line and showed so much support for me being back on Will's show this past Friday. In a perfect world, I hope to be able to put out a new episode every Monday for your viewing pleasure, as well as some special treats throughout the week on all my different social channels listed below. As you may have heard, this week may be the last week of TikTok. So while we're at it, we're at least going to plug it, but we'll figure that out next week. So if you did enjoy last week's episode, or this is your first time on my channel today, why don't you go ahead and give me a like on this video and make sure that you are subscribed if you're not already, so that you get to catch the latest and greatest of everything that comes down the pipe. So back to this show. For someone who was such an opponent and opposed the idea of even reissuing figures at all, what could possibly have swayed me and changed my mind? Well, to be honest, it was getting a few of the new 2.0s in hand over time and realizing just how much better they really were to the original releases. So let me just get this hot take out of the way and say that if you don't agree with the fact that 2.0s are far superior in every way to the previous releases, I don't know what to tell you. Because it started with a slow trickle when the new stealth suit Captain America from Endgame came out, and having previously owned the original version, I could see why some people were excited to get that 2.0. That head sculpt, better proportions, but it did lack a few accessories like the blue shield. That kind of held that one back. But after all, this was Endgame, and he didn't have the blue shield back then, if you recall. Maybe Hot Toys was simply playing the long game, and what do you know? They in fact were. Not too long ago, they debuted the official 2.0 of the Winter Soldier version of the stealth suit with a brand new head sculpt, and what do you know? That blue shield, and even better proportions and articulation than the in-game version. Not too shabby if you were to ask me, but look at some of these comparisons between the original and these new 2.0s. The Bane is truly a masterpiece and a true work of art, and what we as collectors truly wanted from the original Bane that was announced for The Dark Knight Rises several years ago. It seems like they were even able to start upgrading the proportions of their Iron Man figures as well, truly making it seem even more premium than it already was compared to the previous diecast versions. As I said, once I started to get these figures in hand, I then started to realize just how much better these pieces actually were compared to what I already had. Look how comical this Iron Man Mark II is compared to its original diecast release. The original, which was an incredible piece for its time, looks like it's some knockoff figure, and at one time was heralded as one of the most coveted Iron Man suits out there. The same can also be said about Spider-Man, Jack Sparrow, and as you know, that list just continues to grow and grow with each new reveal. Now, to be fair, I have not gone back to my spreadsheets and crunched the numbers officially to find out just how often these releases in 2.0s are being announced. At the time of my last video, I was saying that less than 5% of all releases ever get a release or a 2.0. Check this out. So, the moment of truth. Of these 629 figures, what percentage have been officially reissued? It is a whopping 3%. If you are willing to count the diecast reissues, you're sitting at 5%. Ah, young me. It seems the trend nowadays is that straight re-releases are not necessarily happening, but 2.0s certainly are. The T-1000, Amazing Spider-Man, Batman Returns, Battle Damage T-800, and so much more. But you may be asking yourself, Kiko, what are we going to do as collectors? Why buy anything, especially if they're going to be updated in just a few years? Aren't you worried about the value of your collection plummeting? What can I do as a collector? Well, I'm so glad that you've asked all those great questions. Well, here are 3 ways to help you navigate these troubled waters. And if you can come to accept these realities, you may actually enjoy your collection just a wee little bit more. The first and most obvious reality is this, and you need to accept it. If you have the old one already, you are allowed to keep it and enjoy it. You don't have to have the new one. With all these new figures that we are inundated with on a weekly basis, it seems, I literally had to come back to that reality myself and ask, do I really need the new one? Even going all the way back to not just Hot Toys, but Blitzway and their tease of a brand new batch of Ghostbusters. The sudden cry of terror from collectors at the reveal was something to behold, but I already have the original 4, as well as the Ecto-1 that I paid a pretty penny for and am proud to own. The story of me chasing down the Ecto-1 and these figures as true chase pieces in my collection, and the memories I've made talking on podcasts and other shows about how I needed to have that one in my collection, is worth far more to me than having some upgraded version if and when that day actually comes. And I had to remind myself that, hey man, you literally have this on your shelf right now. You've already paid the price. It is free for you to walk in and admire at any time of your choosing. You don't have to start budgeting for something new. Whew, what a relief. Will there be improvements? Sure, of course, but mine are more than fine and great pieces still. Same with my DX13. Am I going to upgrade to the new 2.0? Honestly, I don't think so. I have 2 of these already that I love, and as I said, the chase was more valuable to me then than having a few more bells and whistles added into the next iteration, and that leads me into our second reality that we need to accept, and that is this. Stop buying the old ones and then being surprised when a new one is eventually announced. You know, there used to be a running joke that as soon as a collector would buy their grail piece off of eBay or wherever it may be, buy, sell, trade, that without fail, a re-release or a 2.0 would be made. Once the Artisan Anakin was announced, the flood of people trying to get rid of their dark side Anakin almost drowned the secondary market because everyone assumed that an Artisan dark side Anakin was imminent and right around the corner. And it very well still may be, and in fact it probably likely is. But if you find a good deal on a figure that you were chasing and you get news the next morning that Hot Toys has officially revealed a 2.0, be like Elsa and just let it go. Like with my Ghostbusters, you now have that piece that you've always wanted already. And as long as you didn't overpay for it, which is a topic for another time, you have that character representation on your shelf that you originally wanted. So what's the problem? Well, naturally you're going to say, but look how much better this 2.0 is. Mine is so much more inferior. Well, that brings me to our last reality that we need to accept, and that is this. At this point, you have to decide how new your collection is going to look. Why? Because Grail and Legacy figures are no more. It hurts me to say that, but it's true. The technology to make these figures better and better is only going to increase, which means the figures overall are only going to increase in quality, not increase in value. Now, unless it's your job to collect every piece that is ever released and review it, which that's certainly not my job, it is not sustainable for the average collector to continue to flip the old one for the new one. Yeah, you may be able to pick up a few bucks here and there towards the new one if you really want it, but you have to accept that there are no more true grails out there that are going to command a fair return on your money in this market. Why? Because the risk, or reward, depending on how you look at it, of a 2.0 is just too high. That cherry has been popped, the dam is open, and the 2.0s are just a reality of collecting at this point. So that brings us back to this question. How new do you want your collection to be? And at what cost? Yeah, sure, of course, you may have a feeling that a 2.0 is coming of a certain character, and you sell your current figure at a fair or decent price, and you can chop it up as a win because the 2.0 may hit. But also, there is no rhyme or reason to what it is that they're actually going to do and what they put out there. So you may sell a figure and end up never getting a new version of it at all. So I guess you gotta do what you gotta do. let me let you in on a dirty little secret that I shared at the very beginning of this video. You don't have to have the new one, and don't let anyone try to tell you that you do. Now, of course, there will be some that come out that are 2.0 to where you say, wow, this is so much better than what I had, and I'm willing to pay the price to upgrade, knowing full well that you are not going to make your money back on the original release that you originally had. Hell, you might not even be able to sell it at all for that matter. Just like my Mark II. I knew I would never get anything close to what I paid for it back then, so I kept it and displayed it with a few other lesser figures. I used the original head sculpt, which is the movie accurate version, on the new figure. And then I used that new sculpt on the Mark IV. Same thing with my Bane. No one was ever going to buy the old Bane, so I used the old base for the new figure and the new coat on the old figure, and now I have two decent displays for a very cool character. So, at the end of the day, the 2.0s and eventual 3.0s most likely are here to stay, and that's a reality that we have to accept. But just a recap. Remember that you don't have to buy the new one. If you are worried about new pieces coming out, stop buying the old ones and being surprised when new ones are announced. And finally, accept and decide now how new your collection needs to look. If you can accept that reality, you may sleep a little better at night. And man, in fact, start liking collecting again. I suppose time will tell. Well, that's going to do it for us here today. The controversial topic of 2.0s and why I myself am okay with them. But that's me. What about you? Do you think 6-scale collecting is dying a slow death by incorporating this business strategy into the hobby? What would you do if you were the CEO of Hot Toys, or any of these companies for that matter? Time to sound off in the comments below. Have you made it this far and still didn't give me a like on this video? Well, I guess I didn't earn it, but if you let me know what you'd like to see that could earn you a thumbs up, well, I certainly would appreciate it. And make sure you're subscribed so that you know when I actually address that and let you know in a future video. So until next time, happy collecting. Hey, enjoy those 2.0s, and I'll be seeing you in our next video.